What's going on, Packers Nation? Victor here, and I've got to be honest with you, the news that just dropped around Green Bay might signal a major shift in this roster heading into the 2026 season. Because today we're talking about two huge developments that could completely reshape this defense. First, the Packers are being linked to a versatile linebacker from the Kansas City Chiefs, a guy who already owns 2 Super Bowl rings and could step in as a potential replacement for Key Walker if he walks in free agency. And second, something much more shocking. A longtime Packers pass rusher, a former first-round pick who once looked like the future of the franchise's defense, posted on social media that his time in Green Bay has come to an end. The post was quickly deleted, but that message sent shockwaves through Packers Nation. We're talking about a player who signed a 4-year, $96 million contract in 2023, a defender who made the Pro Bowl in 2024, and someone who once put up 5 sacks and 28 quarterback hits in a breakout season, yet now, the Packers might be preparing to move on. If that happens, it would save the team almost $11 million in cap space, but it would also leave a massive hole in the pass rush, especially with Micah Parsons still recovering from the ACL injury he suffered late last season. Green Bay might lose a starting linebacker in free agency, and potentially move on from one of the most recognizable pass rushers on the roster. That's 2 major defensive changes, which brings us back to that Chiefs defender the Packers have been linked to, a 25-year-old linebacker who can rush the passer, stop the run, drop into coverage, and line up all over the field. Last season alone, he put up 58 tackles, 2 sacks, an interception, and 2 pass breakups. And across his career, he already has 218 tackles, 7 sacks, and 3 forced fumbles. And here's the part Packers fans will love. He played his college ball at Wisconsin, meaning he already knows the Midwest, the culture, and the style of football that thrives in cold weather. Even better, his projected market value is only about $4, $6 million per year, which is extremely manageable for a Packers team still trying to navigate the salary cap. So in this video, we're going to break down everything. Why Green Bay might be ready to move on from one of its longtime defensive stars. What that mysterious deleted post really mean. Whether this Chiefs linebacker could actually replace Walker, and how Brian Gutekunst might be reshaping the defense around Parsons and the young core. But before we dive into all of that, if you're a real Packers fan, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to Packers Nation Report because we're pushing hard toward 2,000 subscribers and I only want the true members of Packers Nation in this community. Alright Packers fans, what if the Green Bay Packers replaced one of the leaders of their defense with a 2-time Super Bowl champion? What if that player also grew up playing football in Wisconsin, understands the culture, and could come to Green Bay hungry for a bigger role? Because right now, there's a name being connected to the Packers that could completely reshape the linebacker room if Kay Walker leaves in free agency. And that name is Leo Chenal, a key defensive piece from the Kansas City Chiefs dynasty. But here's the real question, Packers fans. Could Chenal actually become the next leader in the middle of the Packers defense? Alright, let's talk about what's happening. The big question in Green Bay, what happens if Key Walker leaves? The biggest storyline surrounding the Packers defense right now is the future of Key Walker. Walker was a first-round pick back in 2022 and developed into a major piece of the defense. In 2025, he recorded 128 total tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 2. 5 sacks, 7 QB hits, 5 passes defended. He was also named a team captain, which tells you how much respect he earned inside that locker room. But here's the problem. Walker is expected to hit the open market, and he's likely going to have a lot of suitors. If Green Bay decides not to match the kind of contract he could get elsewhere, the Packers will suddenly have a massive hole at linebacker. And that's where Leo Chenal enters the conversation. The potential target, Leo Chenal. According to Matt Schneidman from The Athletic, Chenal is one of the players who could make a lot of sense for Green Bay in free agency. And when you really study his game, it's easy to understand why. Chenal is one of those versatile defensive chess pieces that defensive coordinators love. He can play traditional off-ball linebacker, rush the passer on blitz packages, set the edge in certain formations, drop into coverage when needed. That type of versatility matters in today's NFL, where offenses are constantly trying to create mismatches. Why Chenal is an interesting fit for the Packers. Here's something Packers fans will appreciate. Chenal played college football for the Wisconsin Badgers. That means he already understands the football culture in this region. Wisconsin linebackers are known for being physical, disciplined, high-motor players, and Chenal absolutely fits that mold. During his time with Kansas City, he became a valuable rotational piece in one of the most successful defenses of the last decade. But that experience matters. He's been part of a locker room that has won championships and understands what it takes to compete deep into the playoffs. The production, let's look at the numbers. Last season, Chenal played 14 games and recorded 58 tackles, 2 sacks, 1 interception, 2 passes defended. Over his 4-year NFL career, he has totaled 218 tackles, 7 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 1 interception, 6 passes defended. Now, those numbers might not jump off the page at first glance, but context matters. In Kansas City, he was often used as a rotational linebacker, not a full-time starter. Which raises an interesting possibility. What if Green Bay gives him a larger role? The untapped potential, one of the most intriguing aspects of Chenal, is that he's still only 25 years old. That means his best football might still be ahead of him. Sometimes players stuck in rotational roles explode once they finally get starter snaps. We've seen it happen across the league. And in Green Bay, with a bigger opportunity, Chenal could potentially develop into a high-impact linebacker in the middle of the defense. He'd sideline effective against outside run. Bootleg flat routes are exactly the modern offense to attack linebacker. The cost, why this move makes sense. Now let's talk money. According to SpotRack, Chenal's projected market value sits around $4, $6 million per year. That's extremely reasonable. A 3-year contract worth roughly $14 million could potentially land him. For comparison, elite linebackers around the league are making $15 million annually, so this would be a low-risk, high-upside signing. Exactly the type of move Brian Gutekunst has been known to make. The championship factor, one thing I personally love about this idea? Chenal has 2 Super Bowl rings from his time in Kansas City. Being around a championship organization like the Chiefs teaches players preparation, accountability, playoff intensity. Those kinds of players often bring a different mindset into a locker room. And if Green Bay is serious about making a Super Bowl run in 2026, adding players who understand championship football can make a difference. My honest take as a Packers fan, if Key Walker leaves, the Packers cannot afford to ignore the linebacker position. That would leave a huge vulnerability in the middle of the defense. Chenal might not be the flashy headline-grabbing signing, but sometimes the smartest moves are the under-the-radar ones. A young linebacker with championship experience, positional versatility, and untapped upside for under $5 million per year. That's the kind of move that quietly strengthens a roster. And if he develops into a full-time playmaker, it could end up being one of the best value signings of the offseason. Now I want to hear from Packers Nation, so let me ask you this. If Kay Walker leaves, would you want the Packers to sign Leo Chenal? Do you think he could become a long-term starter in Green Bay, or should the Packers target someone else in free agency or the draft? Drop your thoughts down in the comments. I read every single one. Packers Nation, we might be witnessing the end of an era in Green Bay. A player who has been part of this team since 2019, a former first-round pick, a Pro Bowler, and one of the emotional leaders of the defense may have just announced his goodbye to the Packers. Yes, you heard that right. Rashan Gary posted on Instagram saying that his time with the Green Bay Packers has come to an end. Oh, and even though the post was quickly deleted, the message was loud and clear. Something big might be coming. Could the Packers really trade or release Gary this offseason? What happened after his strong start in 2025? And what does this mean for the future of the Packers pass rush? We're breaking all of that down right now. But before we dive into this massive story, make sure you smash that like button, subscribe to Packers Nation Report, and help us reach the incredible milestone of 2,000 subscribers. If you love passionate Packers analysis from a real fan who lives and breathes this team, you're in the right place. Alright, Packers Nation, let's talk about what just happened. The Instagram post that shocked Packers fans earlier today, Rashan Gary posted a message on Instagram that caught the attention of the entire NFL world. In the post, Gary wrote, "On to my next step, nowhere near done yet." And he also indicated that his time with the Packers had come to an end. Now here's where things get interesting. The post was deleted shortly after, but by that point, screenshots were already circulating everywhere online. According to Tom Pelissero from NFL Network, Gary has not been traded or released yet. However, the Packers are reportedly considering both options, and Gary himself apparently does not expect to be on the team in 2026. That is a huge development, the contract situation. Let's talk about the financial side of this situation. Gary signed a 4-year, $96 million contract with Green Bay back in 2023. Entering the 2026 season, his cap hit was scheduled to be just over $28 million. That's a massive number. If the Packers decide to move on from him, they could save nearly $11 million in cap space. However, it wouldn't be painless. The team would still carry about $17 million in dead cap money, so this isn't a simple decision. It's a classic NFL dilemma. Do you keep a talented player with a big cap number, or do you move on and invest that money somewhere else? The rise of Rashan Gary for Packers fans. Gary's journey has been fascinating. He was drafted in the first round of the 2019 NFL Draft and came into the league with enormous expectations. Early in his career, he was mostly a rotational player, but then everything changed in 2021. That season, Gary had his breakout year, 9. 5 sacks, 28 quarterback hits, constant pressure on opposing quarterbacks. He looked like a future superstar pass rusher. And the Packers defense was built around his ability to disrupt the pocket. The ACL injury that changed everything. Unfortunately, Gary's momentum took a huge hit in 2022. He suffered a torn ACL, one of the toughest injuries for any edge rusher to recover from. Players who rely on explosive first steps and power off the edge often take time to regain their form. Gary worked extremely hard to return, and he actually made the Pro Bowl in 2024, which showed just how determined he was. But the reality is, he hasn't quite looked like the same dominant player from 2021. The strange 2025 season, Gary's 2025 season, was one of the strangest statistical splits you'll ever see. Through the first 7 games, he was on fire. He recorded 7. 5 sacks, constant backfield disruption, looked like a Pro Bowl edge rusher again, but then something unexpected happened. Over the final 10 games of the season, including the playoffs, Gary did not record a single sack or tackle for loss. That's an incredible drop-off. For a player whose job is to generate pressure, that kind of production drought raises serious questions. Was it injury-related, scheme adjustments from opposing offenses, or was the coaching staff beginning to lean toward a younger direction? The future of the Packers, pass rush. If Gary really is on his way out, the Packers already appear to have a plan for the future. The pass rush would be built around 2 main players, Micah Parsons and Lucas Van Ness. Parsons is one of the most explosive defensive players in the entire NFL. However, there's another complication. He tore his ACL in December, which means he could miss time at the beginning of the 2026 season. That makes the depth at edge rusher extremely important. The Packers also have young players like Baron Sorrell, Colin Oliver both were drafted in 2025 and could compete for bigger roles. Meanwhile, Kingsley Enagbare is set to become a free agent. So even if Gary leaves, the Packers could still add another edge rusher through free agency or the draft. My honest take as a Packers fan. This one is tough. Rashan Gary has been part of this team for 7 seasons. He's battled injuries, worked his way back, and always played with incredible effort, but the NFL is a business. If the front office believes that $28 million can be better spent elsewhere, especially with the roster trying to stay competitive for a Super Bowl, they might decide it's time to move on. And if Gary himself already believes his time in Green Bay is over, then we might be witnessing the beginning of a major transition on the Packers defense. Now I want to hear from Packers Nation. This is a huge question for the future of the team. Do you think the Packers should 1. Keep Rashan Gary and give him another chance to return to elite form? 2. Trade him to free up cap space? 3. Lease him and what Packers? And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like the video, subscribe to Packers Nation Report, and help us hit the goal of 2,000 subscribers. This is Victor. As always, go Pack Go!